Councillor Guthridge.
Chair. Playing pitch and outdoor sports strategy. The 2023 Play Pitch and Outdoor Sports Strategy, PPOSS, provides a clear strategic framework for the maintenance and improvement of existing outdoor sports pitches and auxiliary facilities in Nuneaton and Bedford. It reviews all current pitches and sites within the borough, the quality of each and the requirements for improvement, as well as looking at current capacity of sites based upon usage and future projections based on population growth. The strategy highlights the importance of access to high quality open space and opportunities for sport and recreation that can make an important contribution to the health and well-being of communities, which is detailed within the National Planning Policy Framework. The PPOSS covers the following play pitches and outdoor pitch sports across the borough: football pitches, grass and third generation turf, e.g. rugby union pitches, grass, hockey pitches, artificial grass pitches, AGPS, cricket pitches, grass and artificial grass wickets, tennis courts, bowling greens. All the data within the strategy is pulled from the national governing body, NBBC, usage figures, and the calculation for the projections are based on set Sport England framework. Therefore, there is little deviation possible to the data within the strategy. The strategy has been reviewed and signed off by NBBC and Sport England, with the final sign being completed by Sport England. The strategy was analysed on sub-areas to allow more localised assessment. The strategy uses the same sub-areas from the 2016 adopted document consistency. Some of the sites detailed within the action plan sit on boundary line. Consultants and officers have reviewed each site to ensure that they are sitting within the correct sub-area. Map of sub-wards attached to the report for clarity. The sub-areas are broken down into Abbey and Wembley, Arbury and Stockingford, including Kingswood and Barpool, Bedworth North and West, including South, Slough, Heath, Exhall and Curzon, Beede and Popular, Camp Hill and Galley Common, Weddington and St Nicholas, and Whitestone and Bolkington, including Attleborough. During the annual refresh, a review and inclusion of the confirmed updated ward boundaries will be addressed. As the fourth year of the plan, financial planning needs to be put in place for the total refresh of the PPOSS at circular costs of 30k, and at that time as an estimate for the medium-term financial planning. This fee previously has been supported through the borough plan budget as the document as one of several key documents required for the borough plan. And I would just like to thank the officer who produced this document, this borough document. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I take a second for that, please? Councillor Martin. We have two public speakers for this. Mr. Smith, you're first.
What, if any, of this report is relevant or can be believed is a lottery. After the skate park incident, where the portfolio holder and the leader of the council admitted that they failed to act on the safety report in not making the area safe until it could be demolished. Then, for us to learn from a freedom of information that the report itself is now in question and hasn't been produced. Lies, deceit, seem to run through this council like a stick of rock. Yeah? The people involved, the executives, who are supposed to ensure this council behaves in a lawful manner, should be stood down until more honest and accountable people can replace them without pay. They are clearly not fit to serve the people of this borough.
Mr. Smith,
Until these
can you speak
issues
to
are
the agenda
resolved,
item,
I cannot
please?
see a way that anything this council says or
Mr.
does
Smith,
can be believed
can
or
you speak to
trusted.
the agenda item, please?
Can they anyway, Claire? Thank you, Lord.
Any points of clarification?
I'll publish the screenshot, Claire. Yeah. You can play that to the game.
Are you vacating the premises, Mr. Smith? You are down to speak on other items. Can you see Mr. Smith out, please?
Blatantly obvious. Resident board to be more listening now, so I'm not doing a good job. Thank you.
So the next speaker I have is Mrs. Connicott.
Thank you. I just really wanted to sort of question a little bit stuff about hockey. Now, it's not a sport that I play. I did in the past, but not in recent years. And I only looked at that aspect of it because a neighbour had asked me a number of weeks or months ago whether I knew what was happening. Because it states quite clearly in the report that the only sand-based artificial grass pitch for hockey in the whole borough is at Eton, and it states that the demand that satisfies the demand for hockey, but that's not what I was told from this member of the hockey club, that they are actually limited as to how much more they can do because they've only got those pitches. And I'm also really concerned because at previous meetings it's been implied, I mean I haven't got the information because you then say it's confidential, but the suggestion was that you're proposing to sever the links with Eton because of the problems with the shared use with the school. So I'm really concerned that there's not going to be, hockey's not going to be able to be played in the borough. There was mention in the report about there potentially being a sand-based artificial grass pitch at Top Farm. But when's that going to happen? There's no money. There's no money for the Bedworth Physical Activity Hub currently that absolutely needs to be done. Everyone agreed with that. So to have it potentially at Top Farm in how many years' time and things, it absolutely is explicit that they must maintain the links with Eton for hockey to continue in the borough. So if we can have some clarification, that'd be great. But that is my big concern. Thank you.
Are there any points of clarification from Mr. Connicott? No? Are there any other non-council member? Councillor Connicott, you get 3 minutes.
Chair, it would be useful to get some answers. At the other place, the County Council, when people talk about subjects like the hockey pitches and well, it's actually an artificial pitch, so you can do five-a-side, people get answers. The report clearly says for the playing pitch strategy, we need to keep the pitch at E-tone, and yet we don't seem to be doing that. You know, page 37, it's quite clear. We also have pitches potentially proposed at Tot Farm, but Tot Farm is, from all accounts, not going to have the public access to sports facilities. There is no funding for it, and when you talk to the county council people, that it's a nice to have, but it's just not going to happen because you just haven't got any money to build it. There hasn't even been a drawing of it or any curbs laid. It is just going to be a block of land at Tot Farm, which is going to be fenced off for the next 15 years, undeveloped, and we're going to have a situation where people are going to lose the sport pitches at E-tone, and they'll say, oh, don't worry, at some point in the future, maybe when you're 15 years older, there'll be a pitch at Tot Farm. This just is not acceptable. The other thing we need to do on the playing pitch strategy is actually have some decent maps. We have this as pitches are handed over to community groups, of there's not actually a clear map to saying which bit of land, where the boundary line is. If at the planning application, there'd be a nice line on the map. And we have issues at Wellington at Sandon Park, and I'm sure it'll be all over the borough, where we don't really know where the club that's renting the land out ends and where borough council land then begins. Because we want to do things like biodiversity offsetting, wildflowers, trees, etc. around our pitches, but unless the playing pitch strategy says the pitch ends at this line, we cannot do that stuff. So I ask for some clarity on those things, and maybe the council can answer some questions about E-tone. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any points of clarification on that?
I know Councillor Cundlar's concerns.
Thank you. So we're opening up into any debate through Cabinet. Is there anybody in Cabinet who wants to raise any points on that? No? So the recommendation of the report is at 2.1 and 2.2. So I'll ask all those in favour. Any against? No, that's carried. So the next agenda item is agenda item 8, which is the lease and licence agreement for Borkington Sports and Social. And Councillor Smith, you've already recused yourself on this point. So Councillor Gutteridge, I believe you're presenting.
Thank you, Chair. Lease and licence agreement for Bolton Sports and Social Club. The current lease expired in November 2022, and therefore there is a requirement for the council to review the terms of the current lease and the format that is required within this for the future to maximise external funding opportunities. The club have a renewable lease for the pavilion and a new licence for use of the grass pitches at the site, 2 football pitches and 1 cricket pitch. The grass pitch licence means that the pitches remain public open space that are accessible to everyone. The licence solely means that that any organised sports on the site, football, cricket, will only be coordinated via the club, and therefore the council will not hire these pitches out directly. The extended term of the lease to 35 years, rather than a normal 20 to 25 year lease, has been proposed to support the opportunity for the club to gain maximum funding. There is a significant development contribution through section 106 identified for pavilion improvements at the venue over the next 5 to 10 years, and therefore funders such as Sport England look at a minimum term left on leases and will approve or reject funding applications based on the security of tenure. The lease will be will be on a peppercorn letting over the term of the agreement with 5-yearly rent reviews. In line with previous sports club lease licences across the borough, the council will continue to support with grass pitch maintenance of the site and provide a contribution to utility costs for the initial 2 years. The agreement working with the sports club to be fully self-sufficient. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that report? Councillor Martin. And I have Michelle Condacourt for public speaking.
Thank you. Well, the one thing that just jumped out at me when I read the report was really the fact that it's a 35-year lease that's been proposed, and it just seems totally inconsistent with other leases and what have you. We've just had the discussion about the, well, you didn't really discuss it, but the item about the Bedford Civic Hall. And, you know, you've almost ruled out from previous things, you know, if the CIC were to have it, that they need a long lease so that they can get money. But yet on this one you're saying, oh well, they need a long lease because otherwise they can't get money. And it just seems totally inconsistent, and I think there needs to be an absolute policy that all leases, you know, to clubs and what have you, are done on the same terms, because it is just totally unfair otherwise. Thank you.
Are there any points of clarification?
I think the Civic Hall is different to a sports pavilion, and we put a 35-year lease so that the pavilion, the Sports and Social Club Pavilion at Bolkington, can go out to get grants from Sport England and other associations. That's why it's a 35-year lease. I have queried the lease, and it is 35 years, and I am happy with that.
Is there a point of clarification to Mrs. Condacourt? That would be a no. Any other cabinet member? Councillor Condacourt, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. It's marvellous that they're getting a 35-year lease. A 35-year lease allows them to do work on the buildings and do things that take time to repay, and it allows them to get funding. I don't think anyone's disagreeing with how generous the council's been towards Bolkington. It is a really good thing to do, and the sports facilities are really very important to keep the population healthy, life expectancy up, and let people have active lives. And it's also good in Bolkington. I went and popped in on a few events as I've been cycling by, and even had an ice cream there. And yeah, it is a really good amount of land that lots of community groups can use. And obviously, when there's like the Jubilee or whatever, there's different things on, or the coronation. But it's really good what we're doing. I think the point my wife was making, and the point many other people are making, is surely we should be doing the same for every other group, particularly in areas that are less well off as Bolkington. And I keep thinking, as we saw in the last paper, how disadvantaged, particularly Camp Hill, Galley Common, that west part of Nuneaton is. And so I do hope we're looking at giving places 35-year leases out on that side and making sure we have an equivalent provision. I know that other areas have it harder to find volunteers, harder to find areas of land, but we need to be raising the bar. We have items on levelling up, and levelling up means everyone should have this high quality venue. Happy for it to be run by volunteers and the various clubs. And yeah, I'd really like it to have things like solar panels and a long-term business plan. But we also need to be mindful that everything else has the same requirements. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any points of clarification for Councillor? So that being said, we'll move into any items of debate that anybody wants to bring up. No? So I'll move straight to the vote then. The recommendations are point 2.1, point 2.2 and point 2.3. All of those in favour that are allowed to vote, please vote. Yes. Favour? All those against? Okay, we noted that Councillor Smith didn't vote. Thank you. On to item 9 is the leisure operator procurement update, which is Councillor Markham.
Thank you, Chair. And this report provides Cabinet with an update on the progress of the leisure operators procurement for the management of council leisure facilities within the borough. It's quite self-explanatory, but due to the quality of the Focus Physical Activity Hub project, a decision is required on the timings of the re-procurement of the licence contract, and it is recommended that a 12-month extension is given to the incumbent operator. And I therefore ask for approval of recommendations as printed. Thank you.
Thanks. Do you have a second for that?
I'll second that, Chair.
Councillor Guthridge, thank you. Public speakers, I have Mrs Condacon.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to really sort of ask, because you're planning on extending the contract to 2026, I assume you're not expecting Bedworth Physical Activity Hub to be ready before then. I mean, I'm glad that you're actually looking at these things in good time, because we've had too many things come to the council and have to be rushed through because contract or whatever is expiring and it needs to be renewed and things. But can I just have some clarity? You're not expecting Bedworth to be, the new build to be ready before then?
Mrs Condacon, it's public statements, not public questions.
Yeah, but it's very hard to say these things without putting a question at the end. You know exactly that I mean a
It
question.
could have been an email, Mrs Condacon.
To who?
Are there any non-cabinet members that wish to speak? You get 3 minutes, Councillor Condacon.
Chair, I don't need 3 minutes because there's just a couple of things I just wanted to highlight that we need to sort out. One, at 3.3, is another mention to Eton Sports Centre, and we absolutely need to see what's happening with it and see if the clubs need to campaign to keep access, what's going on, and also some clarity on that we really aren't going to get a sports centre at Top Farm for 15 years. So I ask that thing is looked at and some feedback given. I don't disagree that we need to pause the contracting out because the Physical Activity Centres project is in a total mess. From my understanding, the Dover Centre, which was built exactly the same as the one in Bedworth, cost £26 million 6 years ago. So the project was deeply flawed to try and build one in Bedworth for the same money 6 years later. I think we need a proper review of what we can build and what sort of contract we go for in future, and particularly what we do with all the other parts of the contract. Yeah, we really need sports centres. Yeah, the Bedworth Centre really does need rebuilding, and we do need things like Eton because it just provides access to sport in places where people can get to from Abbey Ward, St Nicholas Ward, and parts of Atterbury Ward. Yeah, we can't just rely on 2 sports centres. So I do ask that that's looked at. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any points of clarification on that statement? No. So given that, are there any cabinet members that wish to make any points or debate?
No, Chair.
So I will take that to the recommendation, which is printed on 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. The next agenda item is item 10, community involvement, and this is Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you say, this is an update to the Statement of Community Involvement, or SCI as I refer to it. It's been submitted to recommend that an amended SCI is adopted. The SCI sets out how we consult whilst preparing and revising planning policy documents, as well as how we consult on planning applications. A full comprehensive review of this document has not been carried out since 2010. So to make sure all legislative requirements are being met, the SCI has now undergone a full review. The main changes to the SCI are that it's been reordered to clearly set out the consultation process, stage by stage. Also, the regulations have now been set out in plain English, so that our requirements are clear for everyone to read. In addition to the main changes, the new sections have also been added, setting out how we'll consult on applications for listed buildings and applications affecting the setting of listed buildings. So I therefore request that the new SCI can receive Cabinet approval and go on to be recommended to full council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, and I'll second that from the chair. I had Mr Smith down to public speak. He's left the building. That's Mrs Connaught, public speaking.
Thank you. I was just a bit surprised that this hasn't actually been up for consultation, because it said the last consultation on anything about it was 2015. Well, that's 8 years ago, and the world's changed quite a lot since then. I was also rather concerned, once again, and I think I did raise this in 2015, I know I have certainly raised it at some point in the past. The Appendix A, specific consultation bodies, and the list includes CCGs. They don't exist anymore. A sewerage undertaker, what the hell is that supposed to mean? A water undertaker, what's that supposed to mean? Is that Severn Trent? I can only assume it is. Why is it not said to be Severn Trent? I mean, these stupid wordings is just absolutely ridiculous. Appendix C also refers to CCGs, which don't exist, and it refers to LEPs. I mean, could be corrected and things, but I thought those no longer existed and had been sort of subsumed into the combined authority. So, you know, the reason that it goes out sometimes for consultation is that people like myself can actually pick up on these stupid things, because they're obviously, you know, it's just trying to rubber stamp things without actually them being read properly. Thank you.
Are there any points of clarification anybody would require from Mrs Connaught? I'll move on to non-cabinet members. 3 minutes, Mr Connaught, or Councillor.
Chair, the public are getting disillusioned with commenting on planning applications and planning policy. We have for years made no changes when the public asks for something to be changed. We run down a particular road, we decide whether an application should be passed or not passed, and the public have little or no say. I've obviously spoken on a lot of planning applications and at every stage of all the borough plans. And we had this recently with Councillor Smith saying, I trust the experts to give numbers. I trust Severn Trent. What stupid idea that we should just trust people and not actually think that members of the public might have a really sensible view. I have for years been more accurate than the ONS on predicting Coventry's population. I was out by 100 when I worked it out. The ONS was out by 40,000. I think the public, many of whom are professionals, we've got a very well-educated population of experts in all sorts of fields, can actually read these documents, work stuff out, and have really valuable contributions to make to planning. And they don't get anywhere. Particularly on things like transport, sewage, schools, GP surgeries. These are all things that local people can work out we're short of. And the community involvement, this statement, should actually say, we will read and we will consider them properly, not we will rule them out because we just trust our experts. And our consultants' reports, we've had this before. We pay a consultant and we tell the consultant what answer we want. Be it a skate park we want demolished or a housing target. We know how the system works. Consultants are employed to give you the answer you want them to get. And so it's very hard for the public to argue with this stuff until you go to the inspection. There's also a lot of issues at planning meetings. We don't get people notified of when the meetings are happening. There's a lot of things in the statement of community involvement should be stronger so actually public can play a bigger part in planning meetings. They should be asked more about whether they want to speak at meetings, and they should be, when they do speak or send in particularly comments, those comments should be reflected better in the officer's reports, because you can write 4 pages on whatever, an application in Bulkington, and you get summarised down to 1 line. And a lot of those summaries are actually miss out the point, miss out the detail. They're too vague and just get dismissed when things go to committee. We really want active involvement in planning. We want people to change the borough plan where they think it's wrong, and we want people to come to planning meeting and make the planning system better. If we turn down planning applications because the public have got concern, the applicant have got a free right to put a new application in. Take on board the public's concern and put a better application in. Thank you, Chair.
Any points of clarification? Councillor Bright.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Connicord just said that we had given an external consultant the answer we wanted on the skate park safety report before we commissioned it. Can he substantiate that pretty serious allegation, particularly given he was talking in relation to our planning department, where we must not predetermine anything?
Thank you, Chair. We have numerous examples. I think the classic was over the housing numbers, where...
Councillor Connicord, you were asked to substantiate the claim about the skate park and nothing else.
We've had numerous, it's the planning thing, we have numerous examples.
No, you were asked directly about the skate park and nothing else. Can you substantiate your comments made about the report on the skate park? Yes or no?
We believe the skate park report...
Can you substantiate it?
We believe the skate park report was written to remove the skate park. Thank you.
So, that's on the public record. Thank you. Any other comments on this?
On the skate park, I invited...
This is a point of clarification. If it can wait for debate, I would suggest it will wait for debate.
I can tell about the skate park.
Is it not? It's not right. So we're no points of clarification for Councillor Kandaka. So we will now, I will actually ask officers at this point, because that is quite a serious accusation, if there is anything they would like to come back on with regards to the comments that have just been made by Councillor Kandaka.
Thank you, Chair. What I can detail is that we requested an independent survey, health and safety inspection by a company that were fully afraid with skate parks for them to come in and provide a risk assessment of the skate park in Medwood. That report was then circulated, and we followed the actions, following the recommendations in that report. Thank you, Chair.
So it was a fully accredited external organisation,
Yes.
and the report that they brought back was the skate park was dangerous. Can we go into debate? I'd like to open up the comments now. Councillor Guthrie.
Thank you, Chair. I invited Councillor Kandaka into the council house, and he met with the officer, and he was shown the report. I will repeat again. He was shown the report, and he said, it's frightening. I'll end it.
Is there any other member that would like to speak on this? Any other cabinet member? Councillor Smith.
Just to come back, there were some sweeping statements there from both Mrs. and Councillor Connicord. Very misleading comments. CCGs do still exist, and all of the consultees in that document have been reviewed, and they are all valid. So to say that we haven't reviewed them and we haven't done our job properly is grossly wrong. And the world, according to Councillor Connicord, where he's the expert on everything and we should rely on exactly what he says and not the actual experts who have been trained, past degrees, do it for a living. I'm sorry, if I've got a choice between the two, I will always choose the other.
Including Severn Trent.
Including Severn Trent.
More for you.
Are there any other comments to be made other from heckling from the public gallery? No. I do think accusations of impropriety of that nature are rather serious, and the fact that you claimed that a health and safety report has basically been cooked up is grossly misleading. It's not fair on officers who do put a lot of work into these things for you to sit here and make unsubstantiated claims like that, and I actually think that that is worthy of a complaint to the Standards Committee. It's been made in a public meeting, and I will happily support anything that goes to a standards complaint on that, because it's not right to make those claims in a public forum such as this. You're calling into question people's professional credibility, and you're claiming that they are not capable of doing the jobs that they're employed to do, highly experienced, highly qualified, and you're claiming that we're cooking up health and safety reports. I mean, if we'd have kept the skate park open and somebody had lost a finger or an eye, Mrs. Concord, no, you might get a bit of leeway off Councillor Wilson, but you won't get it off me. So either remain closed or leave. Choice is yours. I'm used to dealing with teenagers.
Councillor Golby, please treat the public with some respect.
It's reciprocal, you get what you get. I do think that it is not fair to call into question officers in such a public forum like this. We have it all the time. And don't forget, you're criticising the planning officers who you attempted to completely overwhelm with work when you wanted to call in every planning application all the time and completely clog up the system. So if you really cared about people and you thought these planning officers weren't up to the job, why are you risking the public's planning applications at the hands of these people who you just said are not qualified to do the job? So
do you want to give me the right to reply, Councillor Golby?
You don't have a right to reply.
So you can just talk and make stuff up about me?
Like you do on Facebook? Yes. So, we're moving on. The agenda is, the report is as written. Do we have all those in favour? Any against? That's carried. And I apologise to your officers. Can you please take that back? That is not the view of this council, that your officers are not up to the job. And they are certainly not cooking up and safety reports up.
Which is not what I said.
What was said?
What was said was reports were done to get the answers people want, and the people will be the councillors, not the officers.
Exactly. Thanks for clarifying your point.
If you don't understand it, I just give up.
If you would like to leave, literally the door is there. No one's going to stop you.
No, I wish to speak on other items.
Okay.
But I don't like you making accusations which aren't true.
And twisting our words. Just accept we disagree and move on. Don't twist our words. Okay, Councillor Golby?
There's no word twisting going on here, Councillor Kandaka. So the next agenda item. It's agenda item 11, the Borough Plan Review. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. This report is to update Cabinet on the Borough Plan Review and the Egyptian Travellers Site Allocations, DPD. In June and July of last year, we consulted on the Borough Plan Review Preferred Options document. And since then, officers have been busy working on the draft publication version, which is the final preparation stage of the Borough Plan Review. That draft document is now ready for a 6-week Regulation 19 consultation, which we're proposing takes place in September, prior to submission before the end of this year to the Planning Inspectorate for examination. This draft publication document has evolved from the responses received from the Preferred Options consultation, as well as discussions with statutory consultees and findings from the key evidence base. The key changes are the plan period, which now starts from 2021, so it's in line with the period modelled in the sub-regional headnote. That's the Housing Economic Development Needs Assessment. Also, the overall amount of development has reduced following the publication of the sub-regional headnote and our own bespoke headnote, which looks specifically at local considerations, such as our very high affordable housing need and our focus on economic growth, to get overall figures of 545 homes per annum and 80.5 hectares of employment land for the planned period. The strategic allocations for housing remain the same as in the preferred options document. However, 2 of the employment allocations have been removed as they're under construction and now classed as committed supply. We've instructed the Planning Advisory Service to undertake a critical view of our approach towards duty to cooperate, as well as our policies, and the initial responses from them have been very positive. We're also waiting for a number of evidence-based documents to be completed, including the viability appraisal and the infrastructure delivery plan. Now, they may result in a few minor amendments to the plan before we go out to publication consultation. Therefore, I'm also requesting that any minor amendments can be carried out by delegated powers of the Assistant Director for Planning in consultation with myself up to the consultation stage. Also in the report tonight is the Gypsy and Traveller Site Allocations DPD, or Development Plan document, which underwent a hearing in October last year with the Planning Inspectorate, and since then officers have been in discussions with the Inspector over proposed amendments. The report tonight is the latest Gypsy and Traveller Site Allocations DPD, which includes the amendments requested by the Inspector and supporting evidence which we're required to consult on again, as the amendments are classed as main modifications to the plan. As with the previous document, the recommendation for Cabinet is that the document can be consulted on, with the caveat that any further amendments can be carried out under delegated powers of the Deputy Director of Planning in consultation with myself, should the Planning Inspector require further amendments. And just to finish off, Chair, that is where we are with the Borough Plan Review. 13 documents, over 800 pages, produced in record time in the last 2 years, and I'd just like to put on public record my personal thanks to the team, some of which are here tonight, for their outstanding work, and I know Councillor Collingwood will probably contradict me on that, but this is an outstanding plan. It buries the old plan, which wasn't fit for purpose, and the sooner we can get this consultation out of the way and get it submitted, the better. So my thanks to the team for all their hard work.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, and I will second that from the Chair. Mrs Condacoy, you've got 3 minutes.
I won't be speaking for 3 minutes, that's for sure. But just really one comment, because I mean there's just too many documents to make comments on all those. That's all part of the consultation. I was just concerned that we've only got 6 weeks consultation planned, and if you know the number of documents and the size of the documents, that really is not very long for the public. I seem to recall when your group was in opposition, you weren't very happy when Labour only had 6 weeks consultation on various things, and I think it did get extended to 8 weeks. So I would ask that it's actually at least 8 weeks, because there's a hell of a lot to go through. Thank you.
Any points of clarification on that? Nope. Councillor Kandaka, 3 minutes.
Chair, in the appendix on the infrastructure, It says, in relation to wastewater treatment, at this stage there are no issues been identified relating to capacity. No issues relating to sewage capacity. We have, last year, 220 hours of sewage being pumped into Wen Brook in Bulkington. We had 90 hours of sewage being pumped into the Anchor in Nuneaton. We have thousands of issues with this borough plan. The sewage one is a classic example of just pretending there's no issues and seeing what happens. Going further down the document, it mentions Weddington, and that our sewage and water treatment upgrade will be in AMP8. That is from 2026 to 2030. So it could be up to 5 or 6 years before we get the sewage problem solved in Weddington. And if you look further down the infrastructure document, almost everything is delivered by 2039. And much needed cycle link, people do cycle along Eastborough Way, 2039. We're building houses all over the place. GP surgeries by 2039. Rail improvement, everything in the plan almost just says either by 2039 or from 2023 onwards. The plan has got no detail on it and very little way of funding the infrastructure. One thing I'm passionate about is a station entrance for the Wellington people and St Nicholas people, all that extra development. We could get into the Wellington side of the Nuneaton station. That is no date, no funding. This plan will cost us £500,000. You've already burnt £319,000 on this revised plan, and it frankly is totally useless. It doesn't provide us facilities, it doesn't keep our rivers clean, it doesn't provide us cycle lanes, bus services, GP surgeries, it doesn't provide us a sports centre at Top Farm, it still allows Eton Sports Centre to be closed, it piles more and more houses on, probably only about 100 less than Labour's plan, but it does take about 8 years more to do it. And the numbers just do not add up. In the 11 years up to this plan, we built 5,000 houses in 11 years. If you do the maths, that's 400 and something per year. So your 550 is actually, or 45, is actually an acceleration of the rate of building. We need to be honest, we need to know this plan is totally useless. It doesn't do the solar roofs, it doesn't do any of the environmental stuff we need to do. And we haven't got the teeth to get decent development out of developers. We need to build less and better. Thank you.
Any points of clarification for Councillor Knapp? Are there any officers that would like to remark on any of that? No. So, is there any further comment from Cabinet members? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I won't come back on Councillor Connicall's rant because, you know, once again, I tend to prefer to rely on experts, not the opinion of a person who isn't qualified to talk on it. I just want to clarify for Mrs. Connicall, the consultation at 6 weeks is perfectly legal. That is a legal.
I didn't dispute it being legal. It's what's appropriate.
No, but if you wait, I'm going to explain. This will be the third consultation on the borough plan. We had the first Regulation 18 consultation, which was a statutory consultation. We then did an extra one we didn't have to do, which was a preferred options consultation. The results of that preferred options consultation actually went into the development of the plan from that point onwards. We've now got to the point where we're at the publication document. It hasn't changed substantially from the preferred option, and any comments made on this from consultees or the public will be wrapped up with the document and sent to the inspector. They will no longer change the document. This is now our publication document. So we're perfectly within our rights to run a 6-week consultation at this point, because we've consulted more on this borough plan than the previous administration did on theirs over the 10 years it took them to produce it. So in 2 years, we've had 3 consultations. In 10 years, I think they had the 2 statutory. So that's where we are with consultation.
Thanks for clarifying that, Councillor Smith. Are there any more points from any cabinet members? No. I think this has actually been done in a real short space of time, and as has been said, we've consulted, this will be the 3rd time now in 2 years, and it's actually a real testament to some proper hard work that's gone into this. And let's not forget, at the last cabinet meeting, we were told by Councillor Kandaka that he wanted to stop the plan in its tracks. Just stop it. So on the one hand, we're being told, get on with it, get on with it, get on with it, and on the other hand, we're being told, stop it. It's more flip-flops than Brighton Beach. But that being said, again, I'd like to echo your comments, Councillor Smith, and thanks to the team, because not only have they been doing all this, but they've been getting on with a really pressing day job as well. And I think we'll all be breathing a bit of a sigh of relief when we get a bit more of our time back, having achieved the plan going to full consultation, which is what we are discussing right now. So that being said, I will ask for the approval of Cabinet on points 2.1 and 2.2 as written. All those in favour? Anyone against? No, that's carried. So the next item is item 12. It is the General Fund Revenue Outturn. And it's over to you, Councillor Croft.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I shall try and be as brief as possible with the length of the agenda. And there is nothing greatly new to present in the reports, financial reports tonight, because as I have said on previous occasions, we are presenting the outturn reports, which is the position of the accounts at the close of the previous financial year, which is in March. So the final position on the general fund was over budget. We expected that. The slide happened within 2022. It's been consistent since we started reporting on it in the autumn. We were over budget because of the reduced car parking income, because of the economic issues we faced, the increased cost of homelessness, the increase in the pay award, which, because of the inflationary situation, was inevitable once the inflation started to hit. We had some offsetting with the further work that Councillor Smith has done on our planning fees and on the increase in recycling costs. So the overall position that we're reporting as a deficit of the general fund is £822,000. That is actually down from the £905,000 we projected in February. It's still, we know we've got a challenge on the budget. We know we need to get better on budget monitoring. We've got a very ambitious savings target of £1 million to achieve this year as we go into our budget setting process from the autumn onwards. And we've already built in the £1.3 million transformation and resilience reserve into this year's budget. So we are continuing our improvement on that front, so I shall move forward, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. Any seconders? Councillor Smith. I have Mrs. Kandaka as the public speaker. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Well, once again, there's similar things keep popping up, and we never get any sort of answers as to what you're doing to make sure it doesn't happen in the following year. I refer in particular to reduced income for car parking, which has been reduced every time. And in 3.5, it says there's been a call on this reserve of £339,000 for the reduction of car parking income due to not returning to pre-COVID levels. And yet you do absolutely nothing about changing your car parking thing. You keep saying, oh, but people are staying longer and things, but you don't seem to realise that some people don't come at all, because if you only want to be here for half an hour for whatever reason, you've only got 1 or 2 shops to go into, paying £1.50, people just don't bother. There are various other things that I also picked up on, and one of the most important things is on the marketing, promotions and publicity, which if I can find it, it said something to the effect of increased expenditure on salaries of something like 21,000, sorry I can't find it now. And yet the publicity for events is still so poor. We've had people saying today that they didn't know about the food festival until after it was gone. There was a singer in Nuneaton Town Centre between 11 and 1 today. I only knew that because Keith picked it up on a post yesterday evening. There's a wonderful looking event from Imagineers in Bedworth on Saturday, which I have put on my Facebook, asked people to share. I've put it on my Twitter and asked people to share. But then I struggled to even find it on the council website. No councillor that I follow on Twitter seems to have retweeted it. So, you know, we have some good events going on, which are super, but they need to be massively publicised so that people actually know about them and come into our town centres, increase the footfall in our town centres. That will increase the car parking fees. It's a win-win situation. And you are spending the money on so-called increased marketing and promotions and publicity, but it's not happening. We're not getting the results. There are also some strange other things that I picked up. On the parks, it says insurance claim costs £36,000. Now, I don't know what that's all about and things. I'm sure there must be insurance for people who trick or whatever in the park and things. But surely there's not going to be a £36,000 excess on that, so I don't know what that's all about. The premium's not going to be 36,000. So there are
Thank you, Mrs. Kandaka.
umpteen things.
That's your 3 minutes, Mrs. Kandaka. Are there any points of clarification from Mrs. Kandaka? No. Any non-cabinet member? Councillor Kandaka, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Chair. We were told earlier I wasn't an expert, but I don't think it takes an expert to realise £800,000 overspend this year is not doing very well, particularly on top of about £1 million overspend the year before. And we just do not seem to be listening to the things that are going wrong, and we seem to have optimistic predictions of what's going to happen. Clearly we're in a hard time with the government cutting all sorts of things and people having a hard time living. But Nuneaton could be a really prosperous town if we only started to do some of the sensible things. Parking. We've lost loads of money on parking and we have a crammed car park downstairs. Yeah, why aren't we using that for 1 hour parking and using the 3 hour parking in the road walk? We just don't seem to be getting these things right. We still haven't fixed Victoria Street number 2, which is covered in hedges as you exit. There's lots of stuff we can do, and as my wife says, publicity. We had a marvellous singer in the town centre today. It was a sunny day. If we start to do some of the low cost things, and you know, I get told I don't talk up the town enough, but actually that was really nice today in the town. Singing, wafting its way towards the council house. But yeah, we could be really, really selling these things. So I do hope we do better. I really worry about the accounts because they're not open for inspection yet. There's lots of things that seem to be erroneous about what I have seen. What is available from the outturns are the transactions over £500. And I've already spotted a double payment in that, which I hope has saved the council several £100s. But I do think we need a people's audit. I think we need to go through this outturn, all these massive amounts of overspend, and actually have a look and maybe give Councillor Cross some advice on how not to make these mistakes next year. Thank you.
Any points of clarification? Any officer would like to make a point of clarification on this? Nope. Any cabinet member wish to speak?
I'd like to bring up a few points. So we have social media pages, and Nuneaton Bedworth Town Centre's Facebook page does advertise stuff in the town centre, and there is nearly 3,000 people who are followers of that page. So it does. We recently had the Knife Angel in town, where footfall was around 30% up on this time last year. I think I shared the Knife Angel stuff quite a lot, but there was somebody who didn't share the Knife Angel stuff quite a lot, or if at all, actually.
Who are you referring to? If it's either myself or Keith, you're wrong.
Stop shouting from the public gallery. I have told you more than once, I am not willing to tell you again. Feel free to leave at any point, and I will suspend the meeting until you do so. Are you going to sit calmly and quietly, or do I have to do
be very
that?
calm when you keep...
Right, we'll suspend the meeting until Mrs. Conacher has left the room. I can stay here all night, and you're all staying here all night.
So why are we wasting time talking about me not posting pictures or things about the Knife Angel? It just seems a personal attack that's not needed.
The meeting is suspended.
Which means I can talk because we're not in a meeting.
The meeting is suspended. Right, everyone, we'll crack on. So we were at the point of the general fund, agenda item 12. Councillor Croft.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Very briefly, in response to a few of the points that were raised, Councillor Concord talked about double payment in the accounts. Obviously, nobody likes double payments in the accounts. We have purchase control to prevent that, but having worked in finance and AP for quite a number of years now, it will happen. The important thing is to spot it and to claim them back, which we have done in this instance. On the comms from the lady in the gallery who's no longer here, they will notice, if they look at the accounts, that is a net zero position because that is funded out of UKSBF grant funding, the sort of funding we used to fund the Knife Angel campaigns and that sort of promotion for the town centre. That is entirely outside of our internal communication. And I will just say in response to the comments, what are you doing about it? We are already taking steps to make sure that we have got fiscal stabilisers built into the budget, like the resilience and the transformation fund, which, had we listened to the opposition complain this evening, would have gone on a window contract, which would have been very nice for that supplier, but not very nice for the taxpayers of the borough. So, move to the vote, Madam Chairman.
Yeah. So the report is as written. We got all those in favour of the recommendations of 2.1 and 2.2. Anyone against? No, that's carried.
So the next agenda item is agenda item 13, which is the HRA Revenue Outturn Report, which is, I will be presenting myself and Councillor Croft. You are seconded, I believe? Yep. Seconded by Councillor Croft. We don't have any public speakers. Do we have any non-council speakers? Councillor Kendall, you've got 3 minutes.
Chair, a few things to pull out of this. One is the reduction in garage rents. Garages has been a long-standing issue, and it'd be great if we had some scrutiny over what's happening on our garages, because we've got this massive rise of rents, which is reducing the number of people using our garages, and then our rental income can actually not go up as much as expected. Obviously, in the year we're looking backwards at, our garage rents were out by £58,000, which is not an insignificant sum of money. So I do ask that actually maybe the Cabinet think about future policies about garage rent and having a garage policy, so we can see, because at the moment we're trying to get rid of people almost by pricing them out. And there's obviously some historic prices and different prices if you're tenants or you're people who are just living nearby a site and using the garage. The second thing I really wanted to highlight was a reduction in the spending, or actually not spending, on the climate change stuff, the carbon reduction stuff, which should really be called saving energy and saving money stuff, because we also have a line in here about increased utility charges. And the more the council can do to reduce its running costs in terms of electricity and gas, the less it has to pay in future years. And particularly a lot of stuff like landlord lighting of things, because obviously the tenants pay for their own charges in terms of their own internal use. The more we can green up our estate, the lower those utility bills will be. So I ask the council not to keep delaying these decarbonisation projects and actually get on with some speed. And we look forward to see what happens with some of the other things. On a positive note, I think the grounds maintenance in the last year has been better than the year before in terms of the housing sites. There's still areas where we're still not doing the work we should do, particularly around the back of Cleaver Gardens, where residents have got outstanding complaints with the council, and they have reported them. Thank you, Chair.
I'd like some clarification to make. No? So we'll move into debate. I will answer a couple of those comments, I suppose. Garage rents. We are absolutely not pricing people out of the market. So your assertions there are wholly incorrect. And I will point out to you that actually the garage rents this year are a reduction of 58,000. The year before it was a reduction of 62,000. So actually we've not reduced it as much. So actually that's positive this year. And I will also point out that this report is from before we put the garage rents up. So it has no bearing on the increase in garage rents at all. You are wholly incorrect to say what you just said. I will also point out that in the Green Budget we did change the garage rentals, absolutely. We had a whole discussion about that at the time. We did a benchmarking exercise and we benchmarked our rents against other available garages. So we bring them into line. Yes, it was a big jump at the time, but that's because that had not been done. So we did a benchmarking exercise because that is actually the right and proper thing to do. We have to keep up with the market, we have to keep up with other rental options, and that's what we did because that is the prudent thing to do. And again, we presented that as a budget item, which the Greens didn't present any alternative budget item to that.
The rents are low because not all of our garages are in a fit state to be utilised or rented out. It's as simple as that, and that is another reason why we're doing a complete review on what we've got, where we've got it, and what we can do with it. Some of them are not fit for purpose, some of them will never be brought back into use because they're derelict, and some of them we will fix up and re-let, and the increase will come according to that. So that is to be cleared. There are some really positive things in this. For example, we didn't actually draw down any of the reserves on the HRA at all this year, or in this budget paper. So the way we're looking at it, we paid £19,000 into reserves, is that correct? Yes. So we paid into the reserves to shore up our future vision. And again, we've got bad debt collection, which is going up. We've got, we're tackling rents collection. We're doing all of that. We've completely restructured the way the housing teams work to provide a more streamlined, more efficient, more cost-effective service to our residents, to our tenants, and to the taxpayer. So I'm happy with this, where we are currently. And I think that there is more to do, and I know there is more to do because we're still doing it. We're actually doing a complete review of the HRA because we need to know what's going to happen going forwards, and we need to future-proof what we're doing, and that is exactly what we are doing. Despite all the naysayers and negativity, there's an awful lot going on in the background, and we are making this authority, certainly as a housing authority, fit for the future. And I'm quite happy to stand on that. So with that, are there any other comments that need to be made by Cabinet members? So I will present this report for recommendations point 2.1 and 2.2. All those in favour? Any against? That's carried. So we'll move on to agenda item 14, that's the capital outturn, and that's you again, Councillor Croft.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. It's the same bill as before, but this is for the CapEx programme at year end. On this programme we do have for both accounts we have underspends in the previous year due to our old friend project slippage, £3.8 million on the general fund and £1.5 million on the HRA. Where there have been, there are some small areas of overspend, but I think it's, I hope not facetious to say, Madam Chairman, but where if there is something you want to overspend on, it's making sure we're getting the disabled facilities correct, which is what we have done. The thing I will emphasise, and does need to be, and I'll emphasise on a report that's coming in a moment, we are keeping our capital programme under constant review. Because of the situation in relation to borrowing. We haven't actually undertaken any external borrowing this year for the capital programme. We need to have more of a private sector mentality when it comes to capital projects, to be agile in response to changing conditions, and I can assure you that myself and the Director of Finance and the Director of Regeneration are very much on that view. So we will be this was previous year, Madam Chairman, on the report.
Thank you, and I will second that report from the Chair. I did have Mrs. Conricor as a public speaker, but she is no longer in the building. Are there any non-Cabinet members that wish to speak? Councillor Kandaka, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome Councillor Croft's comments about not spending money that he hasn't got and the borrowing requirements, because clearly we haven't borrowed for doing these capital projects in any extent, and we have a serious problem because now we cannot borrow at a sensible rate. The local public service work bond, or whatever they're called, are currently running at 1% above the 5% base rates, so about 6% is the cost to borrow to do all these projects. So all the things on here for next year, or this year effectively, it's a backwards looking report, like Bridge to Living and all these things, we're going to have a serious problem funding. And potentially, if we do not do the Better Physical Activity Centre, we may have to pay the 14 or 15 million pounds back to government. more interesting questions on here is little things like the fly tipping cameras, which we repeatedly were told were been bought years ago by Councillor Evans, and they're still not been bought, or maybe they've been bought, I think, sent back. But that's £5,000. We're still not getting top of fly tipping. Small sum of money, but why on earth haven't we got fly tipping cameras sorted? And there's stuff in here that's good stuff. Yeah, things we're progressing with. Very disappointed we're not getting the empty property loans out, because I think that was actually a win-win for everyone. People have empty properties but don't necessarily have the means to do them up. If we can lend them £10,000 at a cheap rate, get them back into use, and then that money comes back to us. So that has been a really good scheme in many places, and it's really disappointing that the spending on that has been zero. I really would like more scrutiny of things like the Towns Fund. £10 million it was in the revised budget. Yeah, where's all that going? And yeah, we saw an invoice the other day for 1.2 million to buy Saints with the wrong company name. Yeah, we need a lot more scrutiny on these big ticket items. And the housing revenue account capital programme, there's a lot of good stuff we could be doing, and I hope we will be doing, particularly on making our homes warmer and safer. Some of the door entry schemes, I'm very supportive of that, and we need to be getting going on those. But we do need to get a lot of the fire safety stuff done and central heating stuff done. So it's a mixed bag, but I've got a few questions and big concerns over how we're going to even do this capital programme if we have the ability to borrow the money. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any points of clarification from Councillor Condotte? Councillor Martin.
Yeah, just one point of clarification. We have got fly tipping cameras. I don't know why this money is still here. Maybe we haven't bought the extra ones that we wanted, but we've got plenty of them.
Thank you. Are there any comments that any officers would like to make on this? No? Any cabinet member? No. So I was just to add on the empty properties, we have got the facility to give loans out if people actually apply for them. And if they apply for them and meet the criteria, they will get a loan. I have stood in this chamber before now and encouraged people to do that. And if we're not getting the throughput, we can't give it away. And literally, we can't give it away. So I'm not entirely sure what we're supposed to do about that. But it is noted, it has been mentioned in this chamber by me before, and that is the reason why it's not, it stays on the balance. And that being said, are there any more points that any cabinet member would like to bring up? Nope. So, recommendations are at point 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. Can I see hands, show of hands for all those in favour? Any against? Nope. That's carried. So agenda item 15 is the collections fund. That's you again, Councillor Croft.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Same drill as before. This is the end of the report for the collection fund, with our mechanisms for collecting council tax and the NNDR. We get about 12-13% of the precept, but unfortunately we have to collect 100% of the bill, so it's always our fault. The report does show a deficit this year against our FY22 projection on the fund, but that's not a huge cause for concern before people start talking about that, because the reporting process for the collection fund is out of sync with the budgeting process, so it will even itself out over 2 years, particularly if we've been deliberately very prudent and cautious on the projections of the tax base for the FY23 fund. And I can also reveal that we will very shortly be, as you've alluded to earlier, Madam Chairman, taking quite a robust new approach towards non-payment of taxes and false reporting, shall we say, of single status, which will have the happy effect of expanding our tax base in 2024. So otherwise, I shall move.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. I will move. Oh, Councillor Markham, are you seconding? Are there any non-cabinet members?
No, thank you.
Any Cabinet members? No, move straight to the vote on that one then. All those in favour of recommendations at 2.1? All against? Any against, should we say? No, that's carried. Agenda item 16 is the annual Treasurer report, and that's over to you again, Councillor Croft.
Thank you very much again, Madam Chairman. So, as usual, this report gives the background update on the world economic situation, which is not particularly improved. The main issue of concern for us as a authority that is attempting to borrow for a capital or considering borrowing for a capital programme is the increase in interest rates, because as has been alluded to so far, we've so far pursued a strategy of what's called under borrowing, but is really internal borrowing to meet commitments from our internal cash balances. That is absolutely the right strategy. We were completely right to do that because it gives us that flexibility that I was talking about earlier, which doesn't leave us in hock to external providers. It means we don't have to, in years before projects hit phase, build interest payments into our general fund. And the alternative strategy, which has been suggested, or not quite suggested out loud, is that we would have to be paying interest, even on lower rates, at projects that were not ready to complete or not ready to go into build phase, which would not be financially sensible at all. So, Madam Chairman, it's in the report, we've ended up with a net external debt position of £37.59 billion. That's taking into account the investments that offset it. And we've been able to pay off £8.5 million worth of debt this year. And as I said before, the challenge is to make sure that our capital ambitions and our ability to borrow match, and that is a substantial piece of work that we are going through at the moment. And I think it's the last financial report on the agenda, so I would just like to thank the Section 151 officer, who as always has worked extremely hard on this over many, many long hours, and the finance team, and we're very grateful for what they do. So I'll leave that there.
Thank you, Councillor Croft. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Smith? Then we don't have any public speakers. Any non-Cabinet member? Councillor Kundaka, you've got 3 minutes.
Chair, Councillor Croft, I've been speaking on Treasury items from years before I was even a councillor. In 2008, I spoke to the then Dennis Harvey, council leader, at Cabinet about them borrowing money and putting it in Icelandic bank accounts where they mislaid it for several years. I have form on understanding this sort of stuff a bit, and £35 million under borrowed is a serious problem when interest rates are rising. When interest rates are falling, delaying borrowing is really, really good way of helping your cash flows. But actually you get to a point where you've underborrowed so much that you're then unable to do the basic things you need to do. This council is fortunate that the bank accounts currently hold money given to it by government for things like the Physical Activity Centre in Bedworth. But if we were to proceed with that Physical Activity Centre, we would need to borrow £10 or £20 million to do so. If we don't proceed with it, we need to give that money back to government. In both cases, we need to increase our borrowing because the amount of cash just sitting in our bank account goes down. And this 35 million has grown massively. It used to be about 26 million. So the last couple of years with Councillor Croft in charge, the underborrowing has been getting bigger and bigger. And just borrowing £35 million at 5% or 6% interest is an awful amount of money. So it is good that we don't borrow too early. But we're now in the dreadful position of not being able to move any projects forward without borrowing money for those projects at 6%. And Councillor Croft mentioned we shouldn't borrow too early. Perfectly understand we shouldn't borrow too early, but also we shouldn't borrow too late. And quite often the thing is, when you start getting a commitment, the technique that some people use in business is to actually, when they get a commitment, arrange the borrowing, and if you're borrowing the money early, then effectively lend that money out on the short-term market. That means you have a difference, you lose money on that, the difference between the interest rates, but you've locked in the interest rates from 6 months ago, rather than face the massive hike of interest rates as Truss, that was her name, wrecks the economy and bumps interest rates up. We have a serious problem here. This is a backwards-looking report, and if you look at all the graphs in it, they end at March 2023, and the interest rates just keep going up and up and up. 6% interest on the money to build the hotel or the unknown amount of money to build the cinema is an awful lot of money. The business cases for the cinema, the hotel, all these things would have been done many years ago. Some of it in 2019. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any points of clarification from Councillor Goodall? Would any finance officer like to have any say on what she's been said? Points of clarification? No. Councillor Baxter Payne. 3 minutes.
I won't need 3 minutes. I just wanted to make a quick statement that I am so glad that we have a qualified Section 151 officer in charge of our finances, because what I've just heard, I'm so glad Councillor Condacor is not in charge of the finances.
Are there any points of clarification for Councillor Baxter Payne?
No.
Other than echoing your comments, no there aren't. Is there any Cabinet member who wants to speak? No. So the sage advice we've just heard there is don't borrow too early, don't borrow too late, which is kind of what we're doing. So yeah, and also borrow money for projects that we haven't started, and did I get it right that we should then loan that money out to somebody else when we haven't actually, instead of it sitting in our bank accounts? I'm not sure that's even something. Yeah. I mean, you've got no chance of buying a house, but take out a mortgage anyway. Why would you do that? Yeah.
I'm sure.
So we'll move to the vote unless anybody's got anything else to say on that. No. Recommendations are at point 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour? And any against? Not seeing any, so that's carried. And we are moving on to agenda item 17, which is the levelling up plan, which is myself. So I will present this report. The report is for noting only, and it's in response to the levelling up regeneration white paper, where Warwickshire County Council have developed a county-wide levelling up approach. The levelling up agenda aims to improve the lives and the health outcomes of residents, particularly in Nuneaton and Bedworth, where we have 17 of the 22 lower super output areas, which are basically areas of deprivation within Warwickshire. 17 of them are within Nuneaton and Bedworth borough borders. So this is a partnership between Nuneaton and Bedworth, and Warwickshire County Council are drafting the plan. Warwickshire County Council are the ones who are getting the financing for this, I believe. Is that right? Yeah, so that's why they are the lead authority on this. They have been given a strategic direction by a member steering group at the county, and they've been given direction by myself and Councillor Wilson and officers at the borough. And there is also a wider senior officer working group associated with this. We do know as a local entity where we need to concentrate our efforts, and that is exactly what we are planning on doing. So with that, I will seek a seconder for this. Councillor Croft, second it. And I will ask if there are any non-cabinet members, seeing as though the public speaker, Mrs. Condacor, is no longer in the building. Councillor Kandaka.
levelling up is really important. And earlier we talked about Bulkington and how it's getting its secure future for its sports facilities. And if you look at a lot of this stuff, and we talk about bar pool and things here, overweight and obese adults, health issues, cardiovascular, respiratory diseases, these are all things we need to be tackling. And areas like bar pool really have a very rough time. And so I really welcome putting money in to try and look at some of these problems. We talked at County, or not Mills because I wasn't there, about transport plans, and we have people commenting about the roads and how they're being destroyed by traffic. And a lot of the areas like Barpool Ward, particularly around the Crescent and things, really suffer from heavy lorries. Yeah, there's supposed to be a 7-ton weight limit on those areas, which is never enforced. Yeah, actually putting some money into actually looking at the issues of these lower super output areas, trying to get rid of the heavy lorries that are going through the areas that aren't supposed to be there, trying to get people cycling, which is helped if there isn't lorries trundling through, trying to get them to do more sports and activities. And it's great that Stocking Forward Community Centre is now up and running under its own management, but we really need to be getting the sports type things into these areas. And I really hope you're taking wider range of stakeholders than just a few councillors on tackling some of these issues with obesity, etc., and actually trying to make more fun activities going on. I do park run, I'm not very good at it, but it's those sort of grassroots activities that are great, and not everyone wants to do the same activity. Some people like to run their bikes on the BMX track behind Thomas More School, but it's trying to signpost people to these activities and also get the air pollution down. We need to get the heavy traffic not going through a lot of these deprived areas, because they bear the brunt of a lot of the traffic. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Canatra. Are there any points of clarification? Any other member not a cabinet member? Anyone from the cabinet? No? Okay, well, as I said, the report is just for noting, and it is actually an ongoing project, so there will be workshops that engage with key local stakeholders. There will be public consultation, and there will be member workshops. So, again, the not just councillors. I'll remind you that the just councillors are there to represent residents in the best way possible, and that is the residents that elected them or didn't actually elect them. They are still representatives, and they should be supposed to know what their residents want. So it can't be dismissed as just councillors. There is going to be a wider consultation. That being said, are there any other comments that want to be made by anyone? No, and as I said, the report is just for noting, so all those in favour? Any against? So I will move on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 18, and that is building maintenance corporate framework, and it's Councillor Cromwell.
Madam Chairman, me again. This proposal is part of our internal process improvements, really trying to bring the rest of the organisation in line with some of the best practice from, for example, the HRA, by establishing a proper procurement framework for our corporate assets and our corporate repairs and maintenance, which at the moment is fairly ad hoc and distributed across departmental budgets, which we hope will not only streamline the process but provide a better deal for the taxpayer. And one thing I would just like to point out before it's picked up on, under 4.3 we've assumed zero inflation approach to budgets. That does not mean we have assumed zero inflation, that means that we are not presupposing the budget that we will set in February. Apart from that, I should move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Crop. Councillor Butcher, you second the report?
I'll second that, Chair.
Are there any non-cabinet members? No. Any cabinet member wish to add any further? No. So that being said, we've got recommendations at point 2.1 and 2.2. Can I see a show of hands for all those in favour? Any against? That's carried. So agenda item 19 is recommendations from OSP. There aren't any that I'm aware of. Are there any? No. And agenda item 20 is coming in under any other items, which is a Bedworth physical activity hub update. That's about it.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This report is another one that's quite self-explanatory. It updates the delay on the physical activity hub, but it's actually asking for an agreement for the Toucan crossing, which is part of the project. And the crossing is going from nearby the People in Action building across to the park. It is part of the project, it's needed, and we can't do it until it's actually been approved. So I ask for approval of recommendations as printed at 2.1 to 2.3, please.
Is there a second of that? Councillor Guthrie. Councillor Kandaka, you've got 3 minutes.
Chair, for Councillor Markham, for those who know their crossings, the bird toucan is the one where it has cycles and pedestrians crossing at the same time. And that is great because, you know, Rypeace Ringway, as it's going to be Valentine's Way, does sometimes get very busy and a crossing will be great. But it'd be useful to get some clarity on where it joins up to. Because obviously it's like building 100 yards of it's like building the Bermuda Bridge or something. Yeah, an isolated bit of infrastructure doesn't work unless it joins onto something. And it would be useful to know if that's going to carry on through the park as a cycle route to the new mountain bike track, and also going in towards Bedworth, where it goes. Did it go behind the Civic Hall as a cycle route? Because at the moment, if it just terminates on the Rypeace Ringway behind People in Action, what happens to the cyclists? So I do ask we look at least making it a useful toucan crossing. And on the wider aspect, we do need to look at what we're doing with this and when we get a result in terms of bringing this project forward. Because we do need some clarity, we do need to move forward with something because the swimming pool desperately needs a refurbishment. And so it would be useful if we could get some indication of where progress might be on this, or if we are going to have to end up giving the £15 million back. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any points of clarification for Councillor Kandaka?
I don't think it's clarification. But I will say that it's not just ending at the side of the road, it is going into the park. But I can't tell you at this stage whether it will be done then or when the physical activity hub goes ahead. But it will be going into the park. It's not just ending in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Any other non-cabinet members? No? Any cabinet member wish to speak? No? Okay.